As God's chosen vessels, you are not ordinary. You walk with a higher calling, carrying the weight of divine purpose. But with that calling comes a responsibility to steward what God has entrusted to you. There are sacred things that once revealed prematurely can hinder the very destiny you are called to fulfill. Today, I want to remind you of 5 things you must never reveal to anyone, no matter how close they may be to you. God's vision for your life is a sacred trust, a divine revelation that carries with it both responsibility and power. When God gives you a glimpse of his purpose for your life, it is not merely a suggestion or a wishful thought. It is a destiny that has been set in motion from before the foundations of the world. This vision is designed to bring you into alignment with God's perfect will, to fulfill the unique role you were created to play in his grand plan. However, this vision is not something to be shared carelessly or recklessly. It requires careful stewardship, wisdom, and discernment to protect it from those who may not understand or appreciate its significance. One of the greatest mistakes we can make is revealing God's vision for our lives prematurely. When Joseph received his dreams from God, they were visions of greatness, of leadership, and of destiny. But in his youthful zeal, he shared those dreams with his brothers, unaware of the jealousy and envy it would provoke. Instead of celebrating with him, his brothers plotted against him, eventually selling him into slavery. What Joseph experienced is a cautionary tale for all of us. When we reveal too much too soon, we invite unnecessary opposition and sabotage. The enemy seeks to steal, kill, and destroy, and one of the ways he does this is by attacking the vision God has placed in your heart before it can fully take root. There are those around you who may not understand or support the vision God has given you. Their lack of understanding is not necessarily out of malice, but out of their limited perspective. They may see your potential through the lens of their own experiences or expectations, which may not align with God's plan for your life. If you share your vision with the wrong people, you risk being discouraged or misled. Their doubt, fear, or jealousy can plant seeds of insecurity and confusion, causing you to second-guess what God has clearly shown you. This is why it is crucial to protect the vision by keeping it between you and God until the right time. Timing is everything in God's kingdom. Just as a seed must be planted, watered, and nurtured in secret before it can break through the soil and bear fruit, so must the vision for your life be nurtured in private before it can be revealed to the world. There is a season of preparation that comes with every vision, a time when God works on your character, your faith, and your endurance. During this season, you may be tempted to share what God has shown you, especially when you are excited or eager to see it come to pass. But wisdom dictates that you wait. Premature revelation can lead to unnecessary pressure, as others may expect the vision to manifest immediately without understanding the process that God is taking you through. Protecting the vision means guarding it until the appointed time, when God will make all things clear. It's important to remember that not everyone is meant to walk the same path as you. God's vision for your life is uniquely tailored to your gifts, your calling, and your purpose. What he has in store for you may look different from what he has for others, and that's perfectly fine. But this difference can also create misunderstanding. People may question your choices, your direction, or your methods because they don't see the full picture. But God sees the end from the beginning, and he knows exactly what is required for you to fulfill the vision he has placed inside of you. Trusting in God's process means being willing to move in silence, to follow his lead without needing validation or approval from others. Another reason to protect the vision is to avoid distractions. When you share too much with others, you open yourself up to their opinions, their advice, and their judgments. While some advice may be well-intentioned, it can also be a distraction from what God is trying to do in your life. You may find yourself trying to please people, to fit their mold, or to live up to their expectations instead of staying focused on what God has called you to do. This can cause you to deviate from the path God has set for you, delaying the fulfillment of the vision. By keeping the vision to yourself, you remain focused on God's voice, allowing him to guide you without interference. Moreover, the vision God has given you may require you to go through challenges and trials that others won't understand. There will be times when the journey seems difficult, when the promise feels far away, and when it appears that nothing is happening. In those moments, it's easy to seek comfort by sharing your struggles with others. But even in these moments, it is important to be discerning about what you reveal. Some battles are meant to be fought in private between you and God alone. When you bring others into your process, they may not have the spiritual maturity to handle the weight of your vision, and their well-meaning advice could lead you astray. God's vision for your life is also a source of protection. When you keep it hidden, you prevent the enemy from launching targeted attacks against you. The enemy cannot sabotage what he does not know. Just as Nehemiah kept his plans to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem hidden from his enemies until the right time, you must also be wise about when and how you reveal the vision God has given you. There will be a time when God will bring the vision to light, and when that time comes, it will be undeniable that his hand has been on you the entire time. In the meantime, trust in God's timing. Protect the vision by nurturing it in prayer, by seeking God's wisdom, and by allowing him to guide your steps. Your spiritual battles are a deeply personal part of your walk with God. These battles, often invisible to the outside world, are the crucible through which your faith is refined, your character shaped, and your dependence on God strengthened. However, they are not meant for public consumption or casual conversation. When you are engaged in spiritual warfare, there is a level of vulnerability that comes with revealing your struggles to others. Not everyone around you is equipped to understand or support what you are going through, and sharing your battles prematurely can open the door to misunderstandings, judgment, or even exploitation. The enemy is always looking for an opportunity to exploit your weaknesses. When you openly discuss your spiritual struggles with those who are not spiritually mature or aligned with your purpose, you give the enemy insight into areas where you may be vulnerable. The Bible tells us that we are in a spiritual battle, not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and rulers of darkness. The enemy cannot attack what he does not know, and by keeping your spiritual battles private, you shield yourself from unnecessary attacks. Consider the life of Jesus. Throughout his ministry, he often withdrew to solitary places to pray and commune with his Father. He understood the importance of fighting his spiritual battles in private. In the Garden of Gethsemane, he prayed fervently, wrestling with the weight of his impending crucifixion. Yet, even in that moment of deep anguish, he did not share the full depth of his struggle with his disciples. He asked them to keep watch and pray, but the most intense part of his battle was fought in solitude. This example teaches us that there are moments in our spiritual journey where we must bear the weight of the battle alone, relying solely on God's strength and wisdom. When you share your spiritual battles with others, you risk being misunderstood. Not everyone has the spiritual maturity to comprehend the depth of what you are facing. Some may minimize your struggles, offering surface-level advice or cliches that do not address the root of your battle. Others may judge you, assuming that your struggles are a result of a lack of faith or spiritual discipline. This kind of response can lead to feelings of isolation, discouragement, or even shame. It is important to remember that your spiritual journey is unique, and the battles you face are tailored to the calling and purpose God has placed on your life. Furthermore, when you make your spiritual battles public, you may unintentionally invite others to speak into your life who are not equipped to offer the guidance or support you need. Well-meaning friends or family members may offer advice based on their limited understanding of your situation, which can lead to confusion or distraction. Instead of seeking the counsel of others, it is essential to turn to God in prayer, allowing him to guide you through the battle. The Bible says that the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. By keeping your spiritual battles private, you create space for God to move on your behalf without interference from outside voices. Another reason to keep your spiritual battles private is that they are often part of a larger process of refinement. God uses these battles to purify your heart, strengthen your faith, and prepare you for greater responsibilities in his kingdom. When you share your struggles prematurely, you may short-circuit the process, seeking validation or sympathy instead of allowing God to complete the work he is doing in you. The refining process is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for your growth. Just as gold is refined in the fire, your faith is being purified through the trials you face. By keeping your battles private, you allow God to do his work in you without the distraction of external opinions or pressures. It is also important to recognize that some battles are meant to be fought in the spirit, not in the flesh. When you reveal your struggles to others, you may be tempted to seek solutions through natural means instead of relying on the power of God. Spiritual battles require spiritual weapons, prayer, fasting, and the Word of God. These are the tools that God has given us to overcome the enemy. When you keep your battles private, you can focus on using the spiritual weapons at your disposal, trusting that God will give you the victory in his time and in his way. There is also a profound strength that comes from enduring spiritual battles in private. It builds resilience and deepens your dependence on God. When you face trials and overcome them without seeking validation or approval from others, you develop a quiet confidence in God's ability to sustain you. This kind of strength is not easily shaken because it is rooted in a deep personal relationship with God. It is a strength that cannot be taken away by the opinions or judgments of others because it has been forged in the secret place where you and God alone have walked through the fire together. Finally, keeping your spiritual battles private allows you to protect the sanctity of your relationship with God. Your spiritual journey is sacred. And there are moments of intimacy with God that should not be shared with the world. These moments are the foundation of your faith, the times when God speaks to you, comforts you, and strengthens you. When you share too much with others, you risk diluting the significance of these moments, reducing them to mere anecdotes or stories. Protecting the privacy of your spiritual battles ensures that your relationship with God remains the central focus of your life, not the opinions or reactions of others. Your spiritual battles are a vital part of your walk with God, but they are not meant to be shared with everyone. By keeping them private, you protect yourself from unnecessary attacks, misunderstandings, and distractions. You allow God to refine you, strengthen you, and fight for you in his way and in his time. Spiritual maturity requires discernment, and part of that discernment is knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Let God be your refuge and strength in times of battle, and trust that he will bring you through to victory. The depth of your faith is one of the most intimate aspects of your relationship with God. It's a precious personal connection that God has cultivated in your heart, often through trials, quiet moments, and experiences that are uniquely yours. This deep, abiding faith is not something to be broadcasted or put on display for others to evaluate or critique. It's a sacred space between you and the Creator, a relationship built in the hidden places where only God truly knows the extent of your trust and reliance on him. Jesus himself emphasized the importance of privacy in our relationship with God. In Matthew 6:6 he says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." This passage speaks volumes about the nature of our faith and our communion with God. It isn't for public approval, nor is it to be paraded around for others to validate. The true depth of your faith is something that is nurtured in the secret place, in moments when it's just you and God, away from the eyes of others. Faith, especially when it's deep and unwavering, often grows through experiences that others may not fully understand. The trials you face, the prayers you pray, the victories and revelations that come in the quietness of your heart, these are not always meant for public consumption. There are times when God takes you through a journey that requires silent trust, a level of faith that is so profound that to share it prematurely or with the wrong people could diminish its impact or invite unnecessary critique. You may find yourself facing situations where others around you cannot comprehend how you are still standing, still believing, still holding on to what God has promised. This is the essence of deep faith. It goes beyond human understanding and logic. And because of that, it is often misunderstood when shared with those who haven't experienced the same level of spiritual maturity. Furthermore, sharing the full depth of your faith can expose you to the judgments and opinions of others, which may not always be rooted in truth or spiritual insight. People may question your faith, not because they mean harm, but because they don't see what you see or believe as you believe. They may try to offer advice, suggestions, or even discourage you from the path God has called you to walk. In these moments, it's essential to remember that your faith is between you and God. It doesn't need validation from the outside world. It is sustained by God's promises, not by the approval or understanding of others. Another reason to guard the depth of your faith is that it's not always meant to be explained. Faith, by its very nature, transcends explanation. Hebrews 11:1 tells us that faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. There will be times when your faith compels you to believe in things that have no tangible evidence, and to others this may seem foolish or naive. But faith isn't based on what is seen, it is based on the unseen, on the promises of God that are not yet visible. When you share the deeper parts of your faith with those who don't share the same spiritual vision, they may try to convince you to give up, to be more realistic, or to lower your expectations. This is why it's so important to protect the depth of your faith, allowing it to grow without interference from doubters or skeptics. There's also an aspect of humility that comes with keeping the depth of your faith private. In a world that often rewards public displays of piety or spiritual accomplishment, it can be tempting to showcase your faith as a badge of honor. But true faith doesn't seek attention, it seeks God. It doesn't need to be on display to be genuine. Jesus warned against the kind of faith that seeks the approval of others. In Matthew 6:1, he says, "Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you will have no reward from your Father in heaven." The depth of your faith should remain rooted in your relationship with God, not in how others perceive it. Additionally, faith is deeply personal. Your journey of faith is not going to look like someone else's, and that's perfectly fine. God takes each of us on a unique path, tailored to our purpose, our calling, and our spiritual growth. Some may have a visible public walk of faith, while others may be called to walk quietly with God, growing in strength and trust without the need for external validation. The key is to be in tune with what God is doing in your life, not seeking to compare or measure your faith against that of others. The most powerful aspect of deep faith is that it is often shown in actions, not words. Your faith will speak for itself through your perseverance, your peace in the midst of trials, your ability to trust God when things don't make sense. People will notice the fruit of your faith long before you ever have to explain it. This is why it's important to guard the depth of your faith. It is often most powerful when it is lived out, not when it is talked about. Finally, protecting the depth of your faith ensures that you remain focused on God rather than on people's reactions to your faith. When you keep your faith between you and God, you are free from the pressure to perform or to prove anything to anyone. Your relationship with God becomes the center of your life, and your faith becomes a natural outflow of that relationship. This is where true strength lies, in a faith that is rooted deeply in God, unwavering and unaffected by the opinions or judgments of others. The personal revelations God gives you are another sacred aspect of your relationship with Him that should be handled with great care. These are the insights, visions, and understandings that God imparts directly to your heart, often through prayer, meditation on His Word, or intimate moments with Him. They are deeply personal, tailored specifically for your life, your calling, and your spiritual growth. Revealing these divine revelations prematurely or indiscriminately can hinder their power and purpose. When God speaks to you, whether through dreams, visions, or a quiet whisper in your spirit, those revelations are designed to guide you, correct you, and strengthen your faith. They are like seeds planted in the soil of your heart, meant to grow and bear fruit in their due season. But just like any seed, they need to be nurtured and protected until they are strong enough to withstand external forces. Sharing these revelations too early or with the wrong people can expose them to criticism, doubt, or misunderstanding, which may cause you to second guess what God has revealed to you. Consider the example of Mary, the mother of Jesus. When the angel Gabriel appeared to her, revealing that she would give birth to the Son of God, she treasured this revelation in her heart. She didn't immediately go out and announce it to everyone around her. She understood the weight of what had been revealed to her, and she allowed time for God's plan to unfold in His way. This teaches us an important lesson about the timing and discretion required when it comes to sharing personal revelations from God. Some things are meant to be kept in the quietness of our hearts until God makes it clear that the time has come for them to be revealed. Revelations from God are often deeply personal, and not everyone will be able to understand or appreciate them. God may show you things about your future, your calling, or even about spiritual truths that are not yet clear to others. If you share these revelations with people who are not spiritually mature or aligned with God's purpose for your life, you risk facing doubt or even opposition. They may question your motives, your discernment, or the validity of what God has shown you. This can create confusion and cause you to doubt what you know deep down in your spirit to be true. Additionally, some personal revelations are meant to stay between you and God for a time because they are part of a process He is working out in you. God often reveals things to us in stages, giving us just enough light to take the next step, but not necessarily the full picture. When you share a revelation prematurely, you may invite unnecessary pressure to make things happen or to explain things that are still unfolding. This pressure can distract you from the process God is leading you through, causing you to rush ahead of His timing. Another reason to guard personal revelations is that not every revelation is meant for public declaration. Some insights are given to you for intercession, for you to pray over and steward in the spiritual realm until the time is right for them to manifest. When you prematurely share what God has shown you, you may expose the revelation to spiritual opposition. The enemy is always looking for ways to thwart God's plans, and when you reveal too much, you give him a target to attack. By keeping certain revelations between you and God, you allow Him to work behind the scenes without interference from external forces or spiritual opposition. God's revelations to you are also a form of intimacy with Him. They are moments when He chooses to share His heart with you, inviting you into deeper communion with Him. These moments are sacred and should be treated with the reverence they deserve. When you share these revelations casually or with the wrong people, you risk trivializing what God has spoken to you. There is a beauty and power in keeping certain things between you and God, allowing your relationship with Him to grow in trust and intimacy. Furthermore, personal revelations often require time to be fully understood. God's ways are higher than our ways, and His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Sometimes what God reveals to us doesn't make complete sense at first. It may take weeks, months, or even years for the full meaning of the revelation to become clear. During this time, sharing it with others can invite confusion or misinterpretation, both for you and for those you share it with. By keeping the revelation to yourself, you allow God to continue to speak to you, to clarify, and to bring further understanding in His time. When God gives you a revelation, it is often for your personal growth and preparation. He may be showing you something about your character that needs refining, or about a future assignment that requires more development on your part. These revelations are meant to shape you into the person God is calling you to be. Sharing them too soon can disrupt the process of growth and preparation, as you may feel pressure to act on the revelation before you are fully ready. When you keep the revelation private, you allow God to continue His work in you, molding you into the vessel He needs for His purpose. Personal revelations are precious gifts from God, and they require wisdom and discernment in how they are handled. Just as you wouldn't expose a young plant to harsh elements before it is strong enough to withstand them, you shouldn't expose the seeds of God's revelation before they are ready to bear fruit. Protecting what God has shown you allows Him to bring it to pass in His time, in His way, and for His glory. The specific instructions that God gives you for your life are another critical area that you must guard closely. These divine directions are often tailored specifically to your journey, your calling, and your unique relationship with God. Not everyone will understand the path you are on, nor will they comprehend the reason behind certain instructions God gives you. Sharing these instructions too openly can invite confusion, judgment, or even interference from those who do not have the same spiritual insight or understanding that you do. When God gives you specific instructions, it's often because He has a plan for you that requires obedience and focus. These instructions are not always meant to be explained or justified to others. They are given to you in accordance with God's wisdom and timing, and sometimes the reasons behind them may not be immediately clear even to you. In such cases, you are called to walk by faith, trusting that God knows what He is doing. When you share these instructions with others, you may open the door to opinions or advice that could distract you from God's original command. Consider the story of Noah. God gave him very specific instructions to build an ark, something that must have seemed strange and illogical at the time, especially since there was no immediate sign of a flood. But Noah didn't waste time trying to explain God's instructions to everyone around him. He didn't seek the validation or approval of others. Instead, he followed God's directions to the letter, and because of his obedience, his family was saved. If Noah had shared God's instructions with those who were not spiritually aligned with his mission, he could have been discouraged or ridiculed, potentially leading him to question or delay his obedience. This is a lesson for us. Sometimes the instructions God gives us will not make sense to others, but that doesn't lessen their importance or urgency. Sharing specific instructions can also expose you to criticism or opposition from those who don't understand the scope of what God is doing in your life. People may question your decisions or challenge the logic of the path you are following. In moments like these, it's easy to become swayed by the opinions of others, especially when the instructions seem counterintuitive or difficult to follow. But God's ways are higher than our ways, and his instructions often defy human logic. He sees the bigger picture, the end from the beginning, and what may not make sense now will become clear in time. This is why it's crucial to keep those instructions close to your heart and trust that God will reveal the full plan when the time is right. Another reason to keep God's specific instructions private is that they are often a test of your faith and obedience. God may give you directions that seem challenging or even impossible to carry out, but he does so to stretch your faith and deepen your dependence on him. Sharing these instructions with others can sometimes dilute the personal nature of the test. Instead of relying solely on God's guidance, you may find yourself seeking input or reassurance from others, which can undermine the very purpose of the instruction. God wants your complete trust, and part of that trust involves following his lead without needing external validation. Additionally, specific instructions from God are often part of a larger plan that is still unfolding. You may not yet see the full picture, and sharing details too soon can cause confusion or lead others to offer advice that is not in line with God's timing or purpose for your life. There is a reason why God gives us instructions in stages. He knows what we can handle, and he reveals things to us as we are ready to act on them. Sharing too much too soon can interfere with this process and create unnecessary pressure to act before you are fully prepared. Moreover, some instructions are given to you to develop spiritual discipline and focus. God may tell you to do something that requires intense dedication, patience, or perseverance. These are personal challenges that God uses to refine your character and prepare you for greater things. When you share these instructions with others, you may inadvertently invite distractions or even discouragement. Not everyone will understand why God has called you to a particular season of sacrifice or why he has asked you to follow a certain path. Keeping these instructions between you and God allows you to maintain the focus and discipline necessary to see them through to completion. It's also important to remember that specific instructions from God are often tied to your unique calling. What God tells you to do may not be what he tells someone else to do. Your path is tailored to your purpose, and sharing those instructions with others can sometimes lead to comparison or even envy. People may wonder why God gave you a particular assignment and not them, which can create unnecessary tension or competition. By keeping those instructions private, you allow God to work in your life without the interference of others' expectations or comparisons. Finally, guarding the specific instructions God gives you ensures that you remain fully dependent on him for guidance. When you share too much with others, you may find yourself relying on their feedback or opinions rather than seeking further clarity from God. This can weaken your spiritual sensitivity and make it harder to hear God's voice clearly. By keeping his instructions private, you protect the purity of your relationship with him and allow his voice to be the primary influence in your decision-making process. The specific instructions God gives you are sacred and personal. They are designed to guide you on the path he has set for you, and sharing them prematurely can expose you to unnecessary distractions, criticism, or confusion. Trust that God's instructions are given in love and wisdom, and that he will reveal the full purpose in his perfect timing. Your obedience to his commands is a testament to your faith, and by keeping them private, you allow God to accomplish his work in your life without interference. In closing, remember that as one of God's chosen, you are called to walk a unique path, one that requires wisdom, discernment, and above all, obedience to his voice. The gifts, revelations, visions, faith, and instructions he entrusts to you are sacred and meant to shape not just your life, but the lives of others you are destined to impact. Guard them with diligence, for not everything God reveals is meant for public knowledge. Just as you protect what is valuable in the natural world, so must you safeguard the divine treasures God has placed within you. When the time is right, he will bring all things to light, and the world will see the fruit of what he has sown in secret. Walk in faith, stay true to your calling, and always trust in God's perfect timing. Let your journey be a testimony to his greatness, and as you move forward, may his favor rest upon you. Know that God, who began a good work in you, will be faithful to complete it. Be strong, be courageous, and never forget you are chosen. Go forth and let the light of your destiny shine in the fullness of his glory.